Everybody, and welcome to episode 104 of the iRock Knits podcast. My name is Cori Eichelberger, and I go by iRock Knits everywhere on the internet. I'm coming to you today from Victoria, Minnesota, a suburb of the Twin Cities in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Happy anniversary to me. Happy birthday, happy birthday. We went to Osaka for supper last night. They sing that song when you're back in the back where they do hibachi. Happy, and the little kids come out and they're singing, happy birthday, happy birthday. It's my 4-year anniversary of podcasting today. August 28th, 2018, I sat down and recorded my first podcast. Don't go back and watch those early ones. I had a comment on one from way long ago, and I went back and I was like, oh dear, you have learned so much. And there's still so many things I think I could improve upon to do a podcast, but I already put, some time and energy into this, so I could do a better job of editing and planning, but it is what it is. It's free content, right? I'm not asking anybody to pay for anything. So you get what you get. Yeah, I'm really happy that I have hung in here for 4 years. We're on episode 104 today, and I made a commitment when I started to myself. I said, if you're going to do this, you have to go all in. It has to be a scheduled item in your calendar that you sit down and do no matter what. This would be really easy. I mean, almost recently, in the last couple of years, almost every time I look at the day and say, oh, it's podcast day, I think, I don't want to do it. It's the getting ready. It's the setting up the mannequins and this one is not high enough today, whatever. It's getting out the lights and printing out my podcast show notes. So I print out my list because this becomes my show notes. So it's just easier for me now. I used to do it after the fact, and now I do it ahead of time. And but once I sit down and start talking to you, I do feel like I'm talking to friends. And we have some new people who have just found us. Welcome. I sent you a little note. I've been getting lots of amazing comments. And I read them all. And if you write something really special to me, I don't delete it from my email. And I read it several days in a row because I think, gosh, that person took the time to say something really nice or give me an idea or just talk to me about something. And so some of you should be getting 3 and 4 hearts on your comments. Sometimes if someone's asking a question, I do try to answer, but recently I just have not been responding to comments as much. It just takes an inordinate amount of time in the morning, and I already get quite a few emails and things, so I haven't been responding to everyone, and then there's that little guilt that's assigned with that. But don't feel bad. Like, you don't have to come out and say, oh, Cori, don't worry about it. It's my time, my energy. I just have to choose to either use it for that or for something else. I just really appreciate getting comments. I can't imagine some videos have their comments closed. And I understand why sometimes, right? Because you get some negative ones, but And many of you were very concerned for my feelings about getting negative comments about Kylie or the sound or telling. Don't worry about me and my soul, right? I bring those things up to remind people that I'm a real person here and that I do have a heart and that maybe you should read your comment a couple of times before you send it. But I'm not super down about negative comments, and sometimes they stay with me for a day or so because I think back on them, but usually I can just let them go and be like, you know what, some days you're in a crabby mood and you're watching something and you just want to tell that person something and you have to send it. But I'm okay, right? Like several of you are like, hang in there, it's fine. Don't let them get you down. I usually don't. And I don't get many. And I think one of the reasons that I don't get many is because I bring it up. And I'm not going to put up with that, right? Like if you are going to follow me and have some negative comments or just disagreements with me or whatever, which I don't get a lot of, but I think part of it is because you guys know I'm going to call that out. I'm just not going to sit back and put on a pretty smile and say, oh, it's just fine, everybody's fine, because some people aren't. And that has a lot to do with where they're at and what's going on in their lives. And we've all had a tough few years, right? Like, no matter what in our daily lives, everybody has something. Everybody's got stuff going on. Everybody has something. But adding on top of that, this 2.5 years of having this pandemic where we didn't know, responses and answers to things, and we had to stay home and people weren't working and they lost their financial resources. Like, everybody had something additional in this last 2 years. And so it is what it is. We have to just try to pull ourselves up and be positive. And that's all I really want to do, is have like personal friendships with you. And I do really feel like some of you have become good friends. I've never even met some of you in person, and others of you I have, but you lift me up. And then afterwards, after I post the video and those first few comments that come in, it's really nice. It's nice to have that interaction with people. So thank you for sticking with me over these last 4 years. It was absolutely just really nice to have another anniversary come and go. I don't know that I will do this forever. And I hate it when some of my favorite podcasters stop podcasting. So I have that little voice in my head that says, you have to keep going. But there's going to come a point, not in the near future, but in the next year or two, where I just say, hey, I don't have much more to say. I share a lot about my life, and I'm not sure that's a good thing. I share a lot of personal things. But I'm going to run out of knitting tips and tricks and different things. I have to kind of rehash and go back and start them over again. For those of you that follow me on Instagram, you know that I post a Wednesday wisdom post, and I post a Friday funnies usually. And those are all preloaded. I do those like once every month or two, and I preload those and they come up. But there's just some that I forget, right, that it's coming out. And then I get comments on Instagram and I'm like, oh my gosh, people really liked this particular post. And I had done the work a month or so ago and put it in a calendar where it's called the Later app, Later. And you can go out and just post your posts and then schedule them for days. And that has been a lifesaver for me, because it's really hard to make content on Instagram every day. I just really don't think I'm going to be a Reels person. That's, if you're not on Instagram or you're not aware, Reels is the new way that Instagram is trying to kind of compete with TikTok. So, or in some of the other video apps, they just want you to post video more often. And people like watching video. But I get really tired of listening to, in the Reels, to the same songs over and over again, and different people just adding in their own pictures or things to I don't know, it's kind of canned. It's just, it's canned music that you can go and grab. And then they tell you how to do it. They say, pick 3 knitted items and then put this up. And then the person points and the music's playing. And it's just not my cup of tea. I could do it extroverted wise, like I could do it, but I don't know. So I appreciate you if you're following me on Instagram still to this day, even though I don't have a lot. I'm not dancing for you. That ain't gonna happen. Although I used to dance. I was a disco queen. I graduated from high school. It's gonna age me. 1979, and the 70s, we went to teen discotheque and went all through college. I danced. I had a disco partner. We competed in disco dance on Sunday nights at the local place that would let all the young kids come and dance together. And kids don't do that anymore. People go to concerts, but people just don't go, young people don't go and dance somewhere. I suppose there's a lot of liability with that. We couldn't drink alcohol or anything like that, but we played music and people danced and milled around and talked, and that and roller skating. Did anyone else grow up at the rink like every Friday and Saturday night when I was much younger? That would have been elementary and middle school. Yeah, that's where I learned about girls being naughty. Kissing boys, or it's at the roller rink. Woo! I mean, literally, I remember to this day, I was young, and I went in the bathroom, and a girl was taking off her bra, and she was talking to her friend because her boy, the boy she liked, was gonna feel her up. And I was just, I didn't even know what that meant or what that was. It was just shocking to me, right? So yeah, the way some of you probably had your sex education in interesting ways too, about how you learned about, you know, who was doing what with whom and how that was going. And yeah. Anyway, I don't know how I got on that, but today I'm going to start with the recipe of the week. I'm going to try to start putting the audiobooks at the end for those of you that don't want to listen to that, although I get lots of comments from lots of you who say that me talking about books makes you want to read. And as a reading and English teacher, that makes me happy. So instead of a recipe today, I'm going to share a couple of products because I bought this olive oil. It's called Brightland. It comes in these glass bottles that are so that they're not clear. And I bought the little stopper thing, although you don't have to. It comes with a nice cork and a seal, so you can pour it out of there if you prefer. But I bought this from the company. And Christina of Chelsea Yarns uses this olive oil, and during her Advent and stuff, she was sharing, and they have flavored olive oils, and they're very pricey, but delicious. One of the things I follow Bobby Flav City, Flav, on Instagram, and he talks about every week he does videos about what we should be eating and what we shouldn't be eating in our bodies. And most olive oils are cut with other oils. They're starting with olive oil, but they're adding a lot of other oils that are not good for us at all. And he talks a lot about GMO and how some of the items that we're using in our kitchens never leave our bodies, you know, and it's really interesting. So if you are interested in better health or improving, you know, some of the products that you buy, he goes to Costco, Aldi, grocery store, and walks around and he'll be in an aisle and he'll say, okay, today we're going to talk about potato chips. These are terrible for you. These are worse. These are terrible. But here are a few that you could buy that are a little better for you, just as far as the ingredients of the flavor and the listing of the things that are in there. So it's fascinating to me. So I bought this Brightland. I bought this bottle, and I cook with olive oil quite often. So this sits out on my counter. It's very pretty. And I have had that bottle for several months, and I just bought a new bottle, which made me think I should share that with you guys. So this comes out of California, and I printed a little information for you about this company. The founder's note on the Brightland website says, when my husband and I started to get into cooking, we expected to improve our well-being and boost our confidence in the kitchen. Instead, we had a bad experience. After eliminating likely culprits like cheese and bread, and we believed, much to our surprise, that the cause was the olive oil that they were using. I did some research and quickly discovered the olive oil industry has a history of problems and that not all olive oils are created equally. There are both good and bad products out there. Then she found out my ancestors were salt farmers in South India. The land provided for them, in turn, they provided salt for people in the South. It's a beautiful cycle when left untouched. I believe in the California sun and soil and the beautiful olives, grapes, and fruit they yield. It's my wish that our products provide abundant nourishment. So she is the founder, she and her husband. So they are kind of now it's really grown, but when they first started, she was packaging it all, and they're sourcing olives from California. They visited the farms and picked the ones that they wanted to pick, and then their process is cleaner, and then they don't cut their oils with other oils. So even if you don't want to purchase this or you think it's too expensive, you might want to just take a look at what olive oil you have in your pantry and look at the ingredients and see if it's just olive oil or what other stuff. And really go listen to Bobby Flay, because this week he did a thing on glyphosate, which is from, Monsanto, and how they're putting stuff that will never leave our soil or our earth or our bodies. And we're doing infinite damage, especially if you have small kids or grandchildren. We should be paying a lot more attention about what we're feeding our children. But then the second one, I just got new vinegars, and I didn't realize that Brightland had vinegars until I went out to research this morning for this. It has vinegars too. So now that I know that, I probably would have bought it all together as one. But this was in my Instagram feed, and this is American Vinegar Works. And I bought fermented, slow, and raw vinegars. And these are made in New England, and they're all small batch. So they're making them in small batches. And so I bought the Chardonnay wine vinegar, which would be a white wine vinegar. And then I bought a red wine vinegar because I like to make our salad dressings with red wine and white wine vinegars. And when you're eating it like that, I think it's important that it has, great flavor. I just finally got these in the mail. They had been sitting in my cart, and anyway, but all that's in them are the vinegars and the spices, and it's a fermented product, which is, super good for you. And so I just thought I would share that. So this is American Vinegar Works, and I went to their website, and he has a great story about how vinegar can be so important in what we're eating. Just in the bottled off the shelf is not good vinegar. And if you don't like vinegar, that's probably one of the reasons why. But if you're going to do oil and vinegar or those kinds of things, you might want to look into the product. So I thought recipe of the week this week is going to be my vinegar that's new, that we're going to have salad tomorrow night. That we're going to have that red leaf lettuce salad I've shared on the podcast. It's my favorite one, and I can't wait to try the white wine vinegar in that. I am not a perfect eater or drinker or, whatever, but I think that there are ways that I can be educated. So, yeah. All right. The sweater of the week this week. I finally finished my Derecho. And I've talked about this sweater a number of times on the podcast. I don't usually, but this one has just been on the needles forever. I use Malabrigo Arroyo, which is a sport weight yarn, and I alternated 4 skeins throughout the entire thing to try to get it to not really look like it was flashing too much. And now it's just stripy. It's looking more stripy there than it does in person, and sometimes that light shines off the light colors. Although when other podcasters say stuff like that, when I'm looking at my screen, it doesn't look the way they're describing it. So I think it's my monitor maybe making that look more striped than what you're seeing at home. But I just want to point that out. I went back and forth. So I tried this on, and I was like, I'm going to make it longer. I'm totally a tunic girl. I like things to hang down and cover my ooh-ah and my hoo-ha and my oopsie in the front and the back, right? I always say that in my classes I teach. Got to cover the ooh-ah. And I tried it on, and right now I'm currently heavier than I would like to be, and I'm, dealing with multiple issues, and I just wasn't happy with the shape and the way it was hanging on me. And I had taken it back up to just at the bust, and I had started doing some more A-line shaping. So I'd started with some A-line shaping, but I decided to do more. And then the rows got longer and longer and longer. So by the time I tried it on, it was hitting me at the high rear end. My rear end is bigger. And it was not flattering. But I said to myself, if you make it longer, it would be better. That would hit you better. Then I said, no, the last time you tried on a sweater and it was too long, you took it shorter and it was so much better. So I ripped it out. I ripped out inches of it and I tried it on. I didn't like that either. I was like, no, Cori, this is not going to work for you. You do not like things short. So then I re-knit all that, and it's wide at the bottom. It's getting, wider. And so I re-knit the whole thing and I made it longer and longer. So I'm going to try to show you. Well, I'll put a picture in. It is significantly longer, and it has that little bottom scooped area that kind of looks like a shirt tail in the front and the back. And I do like it. It's not as flattering, if that's even a thing. Should we even be saying flattering anymore? It's my body. It's what I got to live in. And I'm happy that my body is still supporting me in many ways, and it's hard to be mad at your body, right? Like, it's hard to be constantly down on your physical body, the way that you look, the way your legs look, or the way your hips look, or your chest, or your shoulders, or whatever. Men too, right? Like, you start getting that little belly in the front and then you're mad at it, or anyway. So it doesn't look as nice. You know, that's a relative term too, as I would like. I would like it to hang loose and free flowing, but I am happy with it. It was a ton more knitting. I used almost all 4 skeins. I have 2 little balls left. So, and then I finished the sleeve, and when I tried it on, it was not covering enough of my arm. I wasn't happy with, you know, that. And so I decided that I would rip that out and make them longer. So I ripped that out and I made them longer. I'm hoping that they're long enough now. I did block it yesterday. I used steam, and I was going to put it on today, and I have to be somewhere in 30 minutes. So this is going to be disjointed because I'm going to have to stop and then come back and finish. So I didn't put it on because I'm like, then you just got to change, because I have hot pink leggings on today underneath, like, these are like knee ones underneath one of my Gudrun Johnson dresses, because we went to church this morning, and then we came home and had breakfast, and then now I have an errand to run. I have to meet Kylie. So that's the sweater of the week. The shawl of the week this week was not knit by me, but it's beautiful, and I kind of want to knit it. This is called Garlands Around Me by Lisa Haynes, or Hannes, and she's Maliha on Ravelry, and this is a slipped stitch striped mini skein shawl that was knit by Stacy. It is just lovely. I love the length that was long enough, the tails were long enough to bring them around to the front, so you can see what color the mini skeins were. And Stacy knits a lot for hire, and then she sends samples off. They take pictures, they use them as samples, you know, at yarn stores or whatever, and then she gets them back. And so she had a few shawls that were not her palette, and I can understand just having too many shawls, right? And so I got a couple from her, and I'm gonna show another one too, but this is just beautiful. And this is not color work. These are slip stitches that you're working in garter stitch. So just lovely to knit, right? And I think just it's gonna be great for fall, or to wrap around even this summer. I do have a red dress that would be kind of pretty with that, but yeah, it's just lovely. So it's kind of an asymmetrical, almost a crescent shawl. And let me tell you a little bit more about it. It came out in August of 2016. It's fingering weight, so 23 stitches to 4 inches. It takes about 800 yards of yarn. So you've got, you know, your main color and then your mini skeins. It does have a chart, but it is mosaic, so all slip stitches. It's knit sideways. She's calling it triangular shaped, but I'll show you. I don't think that's as much of a triangle. It's longer than that. And the original yarn that was used in this was Woolmiza or Madeline Tosh. And the notes are, it combines lovely ornamental mosaic bands with garter stripes and color blocks. Paired with the different colors of a beautiful gradient mini skein set, this item is enjoyable to knit. The mosaic motifs are created by using slip stitches in only one color at a time. And so if you've never done that before, I took a class in slip stitches many years ago, and we did a bunch of different like samples that we made of different ways. It was fascinating. It was very fun to knit that way if you've never done that before. It is worked on the bias, and the pattern is fully written out as well as charted. Let me see. Looks like there are 307 projects, so lots of people have knit it, so it should be pretty clean. There are a number of colorways that it's knit in, the blue and green, all the greens. So it is kind of a gradient, but if you have leftovers, I think you could certainly use that as well. It ends up being 20 inches deep and 81 inches long. So it's quite long, and and not too deep. I mean, some of them can get to be really huge. But I think it's lovely. So there, sweaters and shawls of the week. Okay, I have a tip or trick that I'm going to share. I found a website that came up in my Instagram, and I clicked through, where you can donate money to a GoFundMe right now, or just be aware that they are making washing machines for poor women in countries where they spend a majority of their time washing clothes by hand. So daily washing of any cloth or any towel that they may have, and then their children's clothing, their clothing. And you have seen, we've all seen women on the shores of a river beating their clothes on the rocks and washing and trying to clean their own stuff. And this man had this vision that what could those women do with their time and their energy if they didn't have to spend all of it doing laundry, washing laundry. So it's called the Washing Machine Project, and they built these little tumblers that you just crank and the clothes go around, and so you just put water in, and it's like a barrel, and they're different sizes. Some of them are metal, some of them are plastic. It depends on where they're going to. And they had engineers design like just a little wooden stand for some of them. They have a handle. And so they're not electric. They're not the washing machines you think of here, but that people like in a village could share, and that would take some of the strain away from women so that maybe women could do other things. I just had never heard of it, and I thought, that's fascinating. This is the quote: "By providing displaced and low-income communities with an accessible, off-grid washing solution, our mission is to empower women with the time to take charge of their lives." And they're halfway to their goal, so they're trying to raise, I don't know, like $120,000, something like that, to get it up and running so that they can make the machines more quickly. And they're like halfway there. So if you have $1 or $3 or $5 and you like giving, sometimes for me, just making my donations each month, I have that from my business, I make donations, and that list is on my Ravelry page, and it's also on my website of the places that I donate to. Sometimes in that moment, physically making that donation can give you the kind of that boost that you get from buying, right? So if you need to feel better, sometimes you buy something, right? Because it gets your serotonin going and whatever. Sometimes giving can also do that for people. And so if you're in a funky mood or in a bad place or just not feeling good, go to a website. I give to one of water. I give to the downtown area in Minneapolis that got burned. There are several, a number of places that I choose to give some money, just a little bit. But if you go to that website and then you donate and then you read about it, it can really make you feel good. It can kind of lift your own spirits, kind of like volunteering, and you don't have to go anywhere or actually be somewhere physically. You can just, read about it. Or if you don't have any money, you could just post about it. You could just tell a friend, right? So I think that's a way to kind of share too. So it's the washingmachineproject.org. I will link it in the show notes. What have I been watching? Okay, my Cori stories this week will be toward that. I'm going to talk about my hip. I've been sitting a lot, and I didn't like the book I was reading very much, and so I watched a ton of TV. And I've been finding that I was scrolling on Instagram quite a bit in the evenings because I was sitting and it hurt to move. So I started watching stuff instead. That way I set my phone down, I have my knitting in my lap. So I have a huge list. So I'm not going to tell you everything about every show, but maybe you've heard of some. I watched one episode of Hacks, Hacks. It's excellent. I want to watch it. We don't have HBO. So that was a no-go, although I can get it and watch it for a little bit and then, sign up and then cancel, whatever. I watched Bad Education, which is a true story of a high school embezzlement. It was not great, the quality, but it was a really interesting story that actually took place where a lady and the school principal, well, the lady in the office was embezzling money and living high on the hog. Yeah. Then I watched Untold, The Girl Who Didn't Exist, and that's the Manti Te'o story about the football player who had never met this girlfriend, and he dated her online for several years, and then he was up to get the Heisman Trophy. He was a magnificent football player, and the details came out that this girlfriend was not real, that he had never actually met her, and that she had, had all these excuses, and it turned out that it was a guy that is now going through the change of his gender, but at the time he had just reached out and they had just corresponded and gone back and forth, and it was a huge scandal. So the story, I just kind of want to know more. When scandals arise like that, you kind of want to know the truth, more of what actually happened. His life was completely destroyed, just completely destroyed, because he was taken by this person in this way. Then I watched the Lance Armstrong story on Amazon Prime. I think I had watched that before, but I didn't recognize it. He was the Tour de France winner, got the doping, and there's the 60 Minutes story, and he denied it for years and years, and then eventually it all came out because one of his co-teammates came forward, and people knew that he had been doping and that all the cyclists had been doping, and that was a huge story. Then I watched a documentary called Bikes of Wrath on Amazon Prime, and this is a Australian bike riders who decide to follow the trail of the Grapes of Wrath from Oklahoma to California on a budget. So they're just going to follow along. They're going to bike. They're not bikers. They have not trained and prepared super well, but neither had the Oklahoma people. And then they kind of configure how much money those Oklahoma people would have had. And then when all of the Oklahoma people got to California, they were not welcomed at all. They did not want them there. They were, placed in camps where they weren't getting work. They were destitute, many of them. Some of the families came back. So kind of mixed amongst these guys going across this journey was the story of how nice people were to them along the way. When they stopped, they'd get a flat tire. One guy got hurt, and people would just help them. And so it was really an interesting kind of documentary show that these 4 guys made. Came out maybe 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 2019, called Bikes of Wrath. Then I watched The Identity Theft of Mitch Mustaine, who was a football player, high school football player, supposed to be the best in the, he was getting offers for years and years and years, and then he was making a decision about what college to go to and chose the wrong school, did not work out well. Then he transferred to another school, and his whole life and career kind of just went like this from that. And these are all coming up because I've watched other things, so I'm getting these athlete recommendations in documentaries, and sometimes I don't want to make a decision, so I just hit play. Then I watched One Friend. That is a story of a woman and her family, and she gets cancer, and the friend moves in. So sad, but interesting. She goes through chemo and has a big cancer journey. In the meantime, the friend of theirs, he moves in with them and helps take care of their children, called One Friend. Then I watched the movie Once, and that's about 2 musicians, and she is a piano player and he plays guitar on the streets. This is British, UK, or Ireland. He wants to go and make it big, and he loves her, but she is married, and that's 2 younger people, and it's just the way that she supports him to try to make his music better. Then I watched What If with Daniel Radcliffe, and that was a love triangle situation. Daniel Radcliffe was Harry Potter when he was little, and this is a story of a woman that he knows and her significant other, and then they become best friends, and she says up front, you know, I'm spoken for, and he says yes, we can just be friends, but you can tell that he loves her. That was called What If. And then, so those were just all okay. They were fine. I'm not going to rave about them and say they're most amazing things, but I didn't turn them off, so worth watching. Now I have 3 thumbs up, like absolutely recommend, thought it was good. First one is called Brittany Runs a Marathon. I loved this show. It was a, you know, seasonal thing, had episodic. And she is an overweight young woman who just can't seem to get on top of things with her life. She doesn't have enough money. She lives with a roommate that they're just struggling all the time. And she has a situation that happens. And so she decides to try to make a change. The part I don't like about this movie is that just because you lose weight does not make you happy. And it kind of portrays that a little bit, but she also meets a woman who is perfectly happy being fat. And so it is her journey, and it's her journey to make, right? To make that decision to start to run. And the first run she does, she's like, I'm going to run 1 block. So you follow her and things happen, and she has friends that she meets that she starts to train with, and she just starts to care about herself. And she was stuck in this kind of dead-end job, and she'd been working it forever, and she just wasn't taking good care of herself. They were drinking and partying all the time. I really enjoyed watching it. But there is that caveat about it does have to do with women's body image, weight, etc. I think we can all do a better job of that. Then I watched Encanto. I had not seen Encanto. It was so good. Oh, and now I know the reference to "We don't talk about Bruno." Whoa, whoa, whoa. I never knew the reference. I knew it came from the movie, but you know, people are using that as a meme, and they're using it as a hashtag, and I didn't know what it meant. He's a character. We don't talk about Bruno. Just watch Encanto. It's very well done. I really liked it. And then I just finished last night watching Partner Track. It's a new series on Netflix. I wasn't sure how relatable it would be because my daughters just went through law school, and this woman is high-powered, New York City, wants to become a partner. That is not Kylie's goal in life, but anything that has a lawyer in it now, I want to watch, I want to learn more. And so it was 10 episodes, not probably super realistic in all of it, but yeah, she's working her tail off for 6 years, round the clock, weekends, holidays, working for the man. She is an Asian woman. Her best friend is a black man, gay black man, and her other best friend is a white woman and they're all work in this law firm. They graduated from college together. They all want to make partner. It's kind of their lives of how that works out. And then they have a huge falling out. I really enjoyed it. They left it for future seasons, for sure. You could see that there could be future seasons. There is some sex in it, just so you know. I really like those. Brittany Runs a Marathon, Encanto, and the Partner Track. Thought that they were all really well done. I have a little confession time. I bought some yarn recently. So I'm going to share because I have a note here. The Yarn Studio is having a closeout sale, and I don't know if they're actually going out of business or they're just closing out a bunch of yarns. I don't know how. I think I got an email. I can't even remember where they're located. They're not here, and they had Malabrigo Ravelry Red, which I've never had a whole set of Ravelry Red. I've knit with one skein of it. And then they had Frank Ochre, and I got it at a really good discount. So right before I started, and I've had it now for a week or two, I went out to look to see, what they have. And they still have Cascade 220 Sport on closeout, Quince, Chickadee, Lark, Tern, and Osprey. So all 4 of the Quince brands in colorways. Kenzie, which is lovely yarn, silky wool, and then they also have the Knitter's Pride Mindful collection, that little blue zippered pouch that has all the needles and stuff in it. That's on super discount, like $80 off. It's a kind of aqua blue. Anyway, I don't usually show yarn purchases and that kind of thing. I don't think it's anyone's business what I spend, and I don't want to make people feel bad that they can't buy yarn or can or whatever, but this sale looked really good. And then my friend said thank you to all of you who came over and went to her website, the My Sable Yarns. She is very thankful, but there is still yarn left. So a number of you went over and helped her out. This is a friend who has to get rid of all of her stash due to a medical situation. And she's a really good friend of a friend of mine. But I know her, and I did not know she was going through this battle. And so hers, it's at mysableyarns.com. She has a D-stash going. Then my mentor, who I've talked about on this podcast before, who taught me everything I know back in the day, Rosemary, who I dedicated my second book, the Knitwords book, to, is moving. She's going to go to senior living apartment and downsizing out of her house, where she has lived with her daughter for, gosh, I'm going to say 60 years, maybe 50 years. And she worked at local yarn stores for many, many years. And I took classes from her at several of those yarn stores, and I knew how much yarn she had. I had a good idea that there was a lot. And so she had a huge yarn sale Friday and Saturday here in the Twin Cities. And so I met my friend Matt over there, and another friend of mine who we get together with Rosemary twice a year for birthdays and things like that, said to me, buy something for me because I want some of Rosemary's stash. And I said, okay. So I was kind of looking for both of us. So I'm just going to show you what I got quickly, because a lot of these yarns were very old, right? It just brought back memories of yarns from the past that are no longer kind of being made or whatever. So I bought this sock yarn. It's called Straw Paws. Can you see the colors in there? It is gray, but yeah. So that's a fingering weight, 250-gram skeins of sock yarn. I got that. And I got this giant bag of paisley, it's called. It's from Classic Elite. And I got 13 skeins of this in this bag. They are 50-gram skeins, but it's pretty. I didn't really know what I wanted to get of hers or how much to get of those things, but she had stuff pretty reasonably priced. It wasn't super expensive. It's probably making a lot of noise. Then I got, how many skeins of this one? I got 13 skeins of this one as well, and this is Taki Tweedy Cotton, and I have plans for this. This is what I knit my top-down sweater that is only written in one size in, and I held 3 strands of this together to knit kind of a bulky cardigan that I get tons of compliments on, that I never wrote up as a pattern, but because yarn is not available anymore. But I'm going to see if I can't find some more of this yarn. It was marked down to $3, and she sold me 13 skeins for 20 bucks. But it is got lots of colors in it too. I'm not always a huge blue fan. Like, that's not my favorite color, but it's my mother's, so I could certainly make her something in blue. And then the last bag I got was this one. And this is Cascade in its tweed. And I think I got 10 skeins, and it's got color tweed in it. Little bits of, tiny little bits. And the color is, it's prettier than that. That looks washed out. It's a little bit brighter than that. And this is Cascade Tweed, 10 skeins. And so it's 220 yards. So I have a ton of this. I'm thinking of definitely making a sweater, maybe even a hoodie Since I have plenty. So we went to her sale and her whole knitting group was there helping her. And it was sad. It was really sad, right? Because you have to get rid of your yarn because you're moving and you're moving on. And yeah, and we all have that, you know, fear of people finding all the yarn we own, but they had it sorted out and everything was bagged, and there were quite a few people there. I posted on Instagram that she was having it. So all right, I have to get ready to go here, but the last thing I purchased, and several of you got in touch to say, Cori, have you seen this? But Gigi made it, the Orange Queen, the icon, did a collaboration with Unique Sock Yarns, and they came up with this kit, and here are the socks. So they're orange on orange striped socks, and they called it Orange Gigi. See, it has that Gigi in it. And so I got messages from several of you saying, Cori, did you see this? And I had ordered it almost right when I saw it. First, I wanted to support Gigi, but also I just thought it would be fun to have that. So I don't know if I'll make knee highs. I'm not a knee high person anymore. Back in the day, probably I wore knee highs, but I don't really wear knee highs anymore. And I don't know that it would stripe well in any other iteration. It might be kind of a micro stripe in a hat or a cowl, maybe. It's the sock pictured is a toe-up sock in size small, 7 inches. So in order to get those stripes, you have to have that circumference. But anyway, so that also came in the mail, and I just wanted to let some of you know that I did get that. Hey, I'm back. You don't even know I left. But I had to go do some things. So I am back, and let's do what I have been knitting lately. I have to share this. It's not a common segment on this podcast, but look at how cute this little alpaca is. It's his little face. It's got a little saddle, pom-poms. Look at that tail. This is a pattern by Susan B. Anderson. It's called Alpaca. A week ago, I was feeling kind of down and sorry for myself, and I thought, I hadn't been feeling like knitting as much. I was sitting with that stockinette and a sweater, and I just didn't want to knit, and so I decided, you need to make something fun, and this was so fun. It's got a little garter stitch belly, and you start and you work your way up, and then you cast off the back, then you work your way up the neck. It's all seamless. You pick up, she tells you where to pick up and what stitches. These are persnickety, right? They're kind of fiddly, futsy, but they're so short that I use double points, and you only have to go around a few times before you're stuffing it and binding, pulling up, cinching it up. These are really fun to make. I've done this before. I have the sweater that has this around the neck. I don't know if you'll remember that brown and black sweater, but I put these little twisties around the neck. They're kind of fun to make. You wrap them around your finger and then wrap and pull, and then it gets a little, and then you have to I use safety eyes that I had to find in my closet, which was not easy, but I eventually found them, and now I have labeled that little box. I have a little plastic box with a lid like this, and I have a couple of things in the closet that have like beads and buttons, and so I labeled that, so now I know where those, I guess I have several packages of eyes, and there is this little crooked smile. I could probably bend his face a little bit and make him a little more symmetrical, but I don't think it matters. And you put a little eyelash on. Oh, so cute. So I started this one evening, knit quite a bit, and then finished the next day. If you don't like little fiddly parts, then it wouldn't be for you, but you wrapped the yarn around the tail to make it stand up. Just clever stuff. And then the little saddle is just garter stitch in 3 colors you can pick. Then you're supposed to bring these around the belly and up and then tie them in a half knot. And I measured my I-cord, but they weren't really long enough. So to tie, I just twisted it. And I'm wondering if that's not how she did it too. But I just picked colors that I put in the saddle. I used leftovers. This yarn was left over, just a cream yarn. I just thought it was so cute. And I have a few little sheep tchotchkes on my table in there, so I'm just going to set him by those for now. He may live with my gnomes, but we'll see. And then I knit a hat. So this is my Friendship Road hat. I'm going to set it on this so I can get it turned here. So you start the Friendship Road, which is just a cross stitch. And usually the Friendship Road has 2 paths on it, but when I started working on it, we were in the car and I wasn't really thinking. And so I started 2 paths, but not side by side. So one on one side and one on the other, but there should be a whole nother road that goes along there. When I got up to like here, I was like, oh shoot, you didn't. So I just left it. I just did a regular decreased top and put a pom-pom on it. This was leftover yarn from a scarf pattern, knitted wit, I think, speckle, and it turned out really cute. So that will go in the gifting box. I stretched it on my, it was quite small, but I stretched it on my glass head and it got quite a bit bigger. So maybe I should have left it for one of the little girls, but because I don't know that this is very gendered, but I don't know that all men would wear a pom-pom hat. So I don't know if my brothers or my nephews would wear a hat with a pom-pom. But again, I tied it in with a button. So I put a button in the center and then I just tied so it comes off. So if you want to wash it or if someone doesn't want the pom-pom on it, they can just take it off and then they can whatever. So then I had this yarn and I decided, these are just my car knitting, like when we drive places or we're gonna go somewhere and Ross needs to stop and run in. I'm not running into stores right now and out, so he's doing all that. So I just sit in the car and I found this skein of leftovers, and this is Abracadabra yarn. So this is the yarn that changes when you go into sunlight. So it's white now, but if I went outside and the sun was shining bright, this would turn purple. I'll put a picture in of how this yarn works. It has, I don't think you'll be able to see it. The yarn has like a metallic, like shiny, silky filament thread that runs with the yarn, and that's what turns over. And so I knew what it was because it feels mercerized, and so I knew that that's what it was. So I took it outside, sure enough, yeah, I had leftovers. So I thought, oh, I have enough to make a hat for one of my nieces, and they would love that because I think I made hats in the past. So I did the Friendship Road again because it's just easy for me. It gives me something to do instead of just stuck in it. But I got up to the top and now this is what I have left. And so I could cinch it at any point and suck it in, but I decided to look on Ravelry to see if there was anyone who knit projects with this and had a little ball left over. And there was a lady that had a picture and it looked like she had extra. So I reached out to her and said, hey, and then she got back to me and she's like, what color? Well, the only color that I thought she had in the picture was purple, white to purple, because that's what I looked under. So then I got back to her and said white to purple. I haven't heard back. But if anybody has this much haiku Abracadabra yarn, which is, I'm sure, discontinued, I will take it. Otherwise, I'll just cinch it shut and it'll be one of those tops that just sucks in and it can, you know, it's pretty long here. And I do have enough to do probably one more round, but we'll just see what happens with that. I can always finish it with another color. I could rip back and do a couple purple stripes at the crown. It's just not worth it to me. Like it's in the, it can go to somebody at a shelter or little kids when they're doing those hat drives. But it will change color in sunlight, which is kind of fun. So those are the things I finished, except I was making dishcloths. So this is my other thing that I keep in the car are dishcloths. I have a little bag in the car and it has a hat and dishcloths in it. And so I never have to remember to put knitting in my purse because I always have the same bag sitting on the back seat and I can grab it at any time. So I'm using up this Knit Picks Dishy. I've talked about this before. It's lovely. It's a little lighter weight than things like Peaches and Cream or any of that cotton dishcloth yarn that you buy. This is softer by far. And I'm thinking about knitting a sweater out of it. Am I crazy? Maybe. But it's cotton and I like knitting with cotton and this yarn is quite nice. And if I held two colors double, it would marl even more. And I think that would be kind of fun. So now I think I have third one on the needle that's almost done. I knit that going this morning to church, and then when we get there, I always sit and knit for a little while. Sometimes I knit into the church service. Sometimes I don't. We sit in the back. That's where my husband prefers to sit. You know, sinners. Whatever. We had two female pastors today, though. So I've talked about this before, but I have a fairly liberal Lutheran denomination. I'm an ELCA member. My husband works for Berroco Benefit Services Lutheran pastors and Christian organizations. But we're pretty liberal. And it's because I know there are some churches that would not allow a woman in the pulpit. But this morning we have a new assistant pastor, Sarah, and then we have an older pastor who has always been our business administrator at our church. And she went back to school as an adult later in life and got her pastoral degree. And so she is a full-fledged pastor, but she does a lot of our finances and that kind of thing. So she preached this morning. The reason that I say that is because she told a story. And when I just met Kylie now, I told her, and I know some of you that watch this are not Christians, but it doesn't matter, right? Like, this is a funny story. So she and her husband, when they were fairly newly married, were really having problems with the electric company. And they had gone back and forth. And so she needed to call the electric company and talk to customer service. So she had written out what she was going to say. And at this point, they were frustrated and mad, and they needed these things to happen. So she called in, and she, was telling this woman and trying to be forceful and saying, this is what we need to happen because we don't have a choice for an electrical company. And then the woman said, I'm hearing you, ma'am, and this is what you want to have done. And we don't have a choice for who our customers are. And I thought, touche, right? Like, good point. And then Gail said, I was in the wrong. I started my phone conversation angry, and I was very forceful, and I was going to get it out, but I wasn't giving her a chance to be a good customer service rep. And I thought, that's true in so many things, right? Is they don't pick us as customers. They don't have a choice. Especially electric companies, right? Like, we don't have a choice of going with a, different, there are some companies that can say, we'll just go to different cable or go to a different phone server or whatever. But it was just a clever story. And I thought, I was laughing. And the reason that I thought of it is because I was knitting a dishcloth at the beginning of the service this morning. So, okay, let's talk about Cori's physical ailments briefly. I went to physical therapy twice. I went back and saw the lady who did my knee replacement after my knee replacement surgery. I really liked her. I could kind of tell that she wasn't super happy in her job. She didn't love her job, but she was very nice to me. And I felt like she did not work me very hard after my physical therapy. And I preferred that. Not that I didn't want to get motion soon enough, but I had a really good recovery. I have really good range of motion in my knee. Like, I can pick my knee up in the back and hold it with my hand and almost touch my butt. Like, you shouldn't be able to get that much motion on your knee, but I have really good range of motion. And I give that up to the fact that when it would be really painful for me, Bridget would just say, okay, we're done for the day. She just wouldn't be that person that would say, let's do 8 more, right? Like, let's really make it hurt. Not that she didn't work me hard, but I had a sub one time during that. I had to see the man at the office instead of her, and he was just a jerk. He was an older gentleman, and he was having none of it. Like, there were going to be no pain, no excuses, nothing. And I did 4 times as many exercises, and then I paid for it the next day. I remember, vividly remember, thinking, I'm not going to be able to walk out of here. It's, hurting, and I know you have to push through pain. I'm a pusher througher. So I went back to Bridget and I said, I was so glad that you were still here 4 years later. And she's like, yeah, I'm still here. So I felt bad for her because I don't feel like I think being a physical therapist and seeing people in pain day in, day out could get really old, right? Having that fresh, like, I want to help this person. I'm sure that's why you go into physical therapy and some, professions, is because you want to be helpful. But she is an overweight woman. And I loved that because I felt like she was not going to say to me, like I went to a sports physical therapy center once, and that man was going to make me into a prime sample, right? I would be there for an hour and a half, and we were going to work all the body parts if I was there, not just, my back, which I know it's all connected. I'm all for that, but I just really like her. And so I went twice, and the first time, by the time we got through, like, what's going on with you? Oh my goodness, you need a shoulder replacement. Oh gosh, okay, your hip's bad. You have kind of bad low back. Oh, you had a struggle with your foot after that surgery, your thumbs, So she recommended a cane. You got to walk with the cane. Okay, fine, I'll do it. But that's hard on my hands. And it's not that my hands hurt, but it's psychological too. But pushing on this, where I had that surgery, I just don't like to lean on it too much. So I would be afraid of using crutches. I'm sure they're super strong. It's like I don't like to kneel on my knees, which a lot of you said you agree when you have a knee replacement. And at my second appointment, we couldn't do anything. I can't spread my legs apart to walk this way, and I can't lift my leg as well out to the side. I talked about that, and she said, Cori, I can't do anything for you right now. Like, you are unable to perform the tasks that I would ask you to do. So I got on the recumbent bicycle because I own one, and I told her that, and I said, I feel like I could maybe do it. And she said, well, let's go try. So we went out and we tried, and I did it. I rode for 5 minutes, and someone else needed to use it, and I was like, I have this at home. I don't need to do this here, right? I could not get off the bike. I couldn't move my leg. I couldn't stretch it to the side and stand up, and she was like, I can't fix this for you. And if it's getting caught, it got caught last Sunday, we were going to the grocery store. And when it catches, it doesn't release. I can't even, I was like saying to Ross, you're gonna have to lift me in the cart. Like I can't get it. So I'm rolling on the cart trying to get out of the grocery store. Then it sat down in the car. It took me forever to get in and then it let go. So all that to say, Bridget basically said, I'm going to write a note. You need something else. I'm happy to work with you, but we're not going to make great strides here. I see you're seeing Doctor tomorrow. I said, yes, I am. And she had said I didn't need to go back to him, but I said, he never saw my MRI. He never talked to me about my MRI. And you said I had a tear, and the lady at urgent care did not relate that information. So last Thursday, that was Wednesday, Thursday, I went to the doctor, and he said, you have a tear in your labrum. It's right here in the notes. And I was like, well, that was not what was told to me at the urgent care. We were told that I had, and I cannot remember the word she used, and Ross tried to, and I thought she said shredding. I thought she said shredding along the labrum and arthritis and he said, you have significantly more arthritis than showed up on the x-ray, which I had told you, which he had, and you have, tearing of the labrum. That's what's getting caught. Your only option is a hip replacement. And I said, would you consider, he said, I will not do another injection. I will not send you to physical therapy. This is, you can get strengthened. You can do leg lifts and all that with what you can do. You can squats or whatever. But right now you have a problem, and the only option is to get it fixed. I will refer you to my 2 colleagues who do these all the time. They're both very good. And I said, so an injection is not an option. I had an injection in early to mid-July, and I got great relief. You all know that. I was walking, and he said no. There are 2 reasons. Number 1, you should not have to have injections 3 months apart would be standard, and it hasn't been 3 months, but I would not also do it because if you have an injection, you can't have surgery. None of my colleagues would do a surgery for up to 3 months after having a cortisone injection. And I was just hoping that I could have one to get through September, because Ross and I are going away for Labor Day. I'm teaching in South Dakota on the 16, 17, 18, something like that. I'm teaching online on Zoom at for Flaxsea, and then I'm teaching at Be Woolen. And so I have these gigs that I'm contracted to teach at, and I haven't been teaching much anywhere else. And so that's my income for the year to keep my business kind of going, even though I haven't been designing this summer. So I was just hoping that maybe he would see fit to let me have one. But he said no. So he gave me a prescription for hydrocodone. And I said, I don't need a prescription. I don't want to start taking that. I'm not a fan. And he said, are you sleeping well? And I said, no, I wake up, I can't get comfortable. And then he said, you should probably fill it for the just in case. I am not sure how soon you can get in to get this fixed. And I will just write it and you can make the decision. So I haven't filled it, but I asked him about arthritis Tylenol. So my father, the pharmacist, recommended, and we couldn't find it here. It didn't have it at the local pharmacy, and so I hadn't been able to pick it up, so I hadn't been able to see if it would work. So I went to Walgreens. It's a not very busy one. And I thought, if anybody, they'll have it. And they did. And so I took that on Thursday or Friday for the first time, Friday. And I got quite a bit of relief. That really helped. Especially when I wasn't sitting. Sitting, I'm fine. But anytime I have to walk or stand, like I can't stand to make supper. That sounds funny. I can't stand to make supper. No, I can't stand up in the kitchen for a half an hour before it starts to really hurt me. Oh, my necklace got turned around. So one night I said to Ross, he came out and I said, I can't, I got to go sit down. You got to finish supper. And he's like, I'm happy to finish supper. He had just finished work for the day. So he would, but I was trying to do it. And I decided to wind some yarn one day in the office because we got the new office furniture. So I moved my Swift and my ball winder in there, and I have a great setup now. And it's not on the dining room table all the time. And I had this yarn to wind. And so I thought, I'll just do that while I do some work on the computer. And I had to get up and sit down and get up and sit down. And then I went to make supper. And I couldn't stand. I just can't, I can't do it. So I am going to see a woman. I'm so excited. Christine, her name, I probably shouldn't. Anyway, there was a man and a woman, and I thought, I've never had a woman orthopedic surgeon, so I'll see her. And when I went up to the desk, the gal said, oh, okay, but she's like booking into October. I'll see what I can do to get you in. And I was like, okay, fine, but I can go see the man. It doesn't matter to me. That I had two names to choose from for hips at the Tria where I go. And she said, whoa, wait a second. It looks like she just had a cancellation for next Thursday morning. I'll take it. So next Thursday, I am seeing the surgeon, and we'll see what she has to say. I have no idea how many days a week they do surgery. I know that my other doctor who did my knees, and that he was in the office, surgeries 2 mornings a week, and then came into the office in the afternoons or 3 days a week. They had that program, some of you, if you're new, they had a program where I went to a hotel across the street for my knee replacement, and there was a nurse on duty, and so they would kind of rent it out the floor. So I never went to a hospital, but then she's there, and they have this ice machine that you're in, and you stay in the hospital and you order food from room service, and you stay in the hotel, not a hospital. And then you just order food in, and then she's there throughout the night. She manages your pain, and then they see how you're doing, and you stay 1 or 2 nights. And you're not, but she doesn't come in and wake you up and check your vitals and all that. Our room was adjoining. She didn't have it, and then there were several patients. So Ross stayed with me, and he had a bed, and there was like a recliner in the corner where you could lay down or in the bed, and then they checked your vitals just in the morning. So I don't know if they do that for hips. Hips may be same day surgery. I don't know. People keep saying hips aren't as bad as knees, and that's fine, great. My father-in-law had 3 hip replacements over the years, and he got along just fine. But I don't want to go in thinking that it's going to be a piece of cake because I've had my knees done and the hips are easier, right? Like, I need to remember that I'm literally having a joint replaced and that I'm going to have to work hard afterwards. So all that being said, I am going to teach. So let me share that. I'm teaching in South Dakota, middle of September, and the classes are still available. So if you're anywhere in Minnesota or South Dakota, you want to go to Watertown for the weekend, September 16, 17, and 18, I am teaching 50 Shades of Sweaters, Fixer Upper, maybe Latvian braids, maybe fixing mistakes. I'm doing my Skeins to Skeins trivia game. So I'm supposed to teach 5 classes. And I wrote to the lady and I told her I'm having a hip issue and she's had a knee replacement, and I said I'm just going to need help getting things from point A to point B, and then I may sit in most of my classes, and that's fine. I can sit. Probably have to stand in my sweater class mostly, but you know, arthritis Tylenol and me will be a friend that weekend. And then the next week I'm teaching for Floxy, and that is the new Knit and Escape. And they are trying really hard to be a new type of organization. They are the ones that had the trouble with Christy Glass. We talked about that before. Well, Christy Glass had trouble with the knitting community because she made a poor choice, bad comments. And so they hired me to teach on that Saturday, September 24th, online, Zoom. So I'm teaching Latvian braids, choose your own path, hat and cowl, and we're doing Cori's 2-color cast on. If you've never done that class, that's a fun, you make a hat, it's a fun class. You could sign up. Their registration is open now. It's floxy.com. And then I'm also doing a workshop. So they're doing something new this time where they're going to have workshops kind of running all day that are, I think, free for you to, if you buy a package or you buy in or you buy 1 or 2 classes. I don't really know that I'm teaching a 1-hour workshop on Ravelry. So I'm going to do some tips and tricks about Ravelry. And then I'm teaching at Bee Woolen the beginning of October. So October 2nd, maybe 1st or 2nd. And I'm doing 50 Shades sweaters or shawls, I can't remember, and then my Fixer Upper class, and then I don't have anything else. So I'm thinking, depending on how far out the surgeon is, I will have my surgery at the beginning of October, that first full week in October. I think I need to be kind of taken care of for about a week or so. So my husband will have to work from home, but I'm just thankful that they can fix it. And now I know what it is because it seemed like I had mild arthritis and an old labrum. Seemed more significant than that. And so that's my update. Several of you have chimed in on having to have surgeries and getting things fixed or going through, health crises and things. And yeah, I got to get it done. So we'll get it done. That was a long story, but you guys are used to me being a little long-winded. All right. Things I saw on the internet. I have a couple things to share with you that are really cute. You might be interested in. And I don't know if I shared this with you guys, but I shared it with a bunch of people, so I might have, but they did a front page of Ravelry, the landing page of Ravelry. So when you click on the word Ravelry on your computer or your iPad, their front page comes up, and they update that about every 2 to 4 weeks with like news or whatever. And they had some featured projects, and this woman made this light cover globe. You know how those paper globes are things? She crocheted a bunch of doilies and stitched them together with thread and starched it. And I think she starched it with a giant balloon or a ball. Is that not awesome? Here it is hanging over her bed. Isn't that neat? I mean, if you're a crocheter or you've crocheted a ton of doilies, little white doilies. I just thought that was so cool. There's no pattern for that. But it is by Vilma. And if you Google white and lacy lamp shade on Ravelry, I'll put that down below. That's what it comes up under, and you could see what she did. Really cool, really fun. And then I saw this blanket, and I know a lot of you crochet for kids. Look at this blanket. It is a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle blanket. So it's just crocheted stripes in the colors of the turtles, and then she put felt eyes, or she might have even crocheted the eyes, but they're just on there. Is that not just so cute? Oh my goodness. You could even make a hat if little kids are still into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So cute. And then the last thing I saw were these, they're called Flash Dance chair socks / leg warmers. And they are little knitted cuffs for the bottom of your stools. I have little pads underneath my stools in the kitchen, but now I want these. I want little orange. I just think, and there were tons of patterns like this because I was trying to come up with this one. This is Leanne from The Knitty Sew, and she has a podcast. So then I had to click through and follow her on the podcast. She is a Canadian flight attendant who's a knitter who goes all over and then shows you where she goes. So there you go. She knit the Flash Dance chair socks, and then she also has a podcast. And I think maybe she's on episode 6. Is that what oh, you guys, I watch so many. And then sometimes I don't finish them all, and then sometimes I watch quite a few of them. I have to shout out Kevin and Ray of the Needles at the Ready podcast I was watching. It's just always funny when someone says your name, right? And they said that they were watching, and I was talking about introverts and extroverts and how people can, you know, name themselves, and they were, yeah. So they brought up that they had been watching my podcast, and I always watch them. They're funny together. The thing I like about two people podcasts is the interaction between two people, and I wish that I had someone in my life, introvert husband and daughter, or knitter friends that were super like into podcasting that would want to come out every other week, because it's just a big time commitment, right? And just don't have anybody that would want to come and sit with me every 2 weeks. I would love to have several people. I may do guests at some point where I just have everybody in my knitting group. Half my knitting group wouldn't even come. They'd be like, no, thank you. So, because you are putting yourself out there. But anyway, those are the things I saw on the internet. That was kind of fun. All right, so audiobooks. Now we need to do the audiobooks because I'm leaving them till the end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 audiobooks and a hardcover. So I read Deep into the Dark by PJ Tracy. And she is a Minnesota author with the Monkey Wrench Gang. If you are a Minnesota reader and you have not read the Monkey Wrench Gang series, you have to. Those are the first books that I remember as a younger person that took place in Minnesota that I remember. And she and her mother wrote them together, and it was about these computer geeks who were so smart and got together to help solve a crime. And then the books continue on with these same people who develop programs to help them fight crime and find, criminals. Just really well written. But then the mother of that team died. I talked about that last time. And then now the daughter has taken over. But I read that book. And then I read a second one called Nothing Stays Buried. I was listening. And when I went to write it down, I had already listened to it. I already had a check by it. And none of it sounded familiar. But some of these are older. They came out number of years ago. And so I did 2 P.J. Tracy's, one of which I had listened to before, apparently. Then I read Gilead by Marilynne Robinson, and that's the one that I just couldn't get into and continue to. I listened, but it is about a man who travels to the Midwest back in the day to settle a farm and but he's a pastor. And so he tries to start a church in the country, and he becomes ill, and he starts writing letters to his son for when his son becomes older and comes of age. And so it isn't, it's not like a cancer story or a, illness story in that regards. What it is it's a telling of his life through letters to his son. And the language was very old-fashioned. It reminded me of reading things that, because we don't speak that way anymore, it was a little flowery, a little over the top, a little Shakespearean. Not like that, but like sometimes you just had to slow down your listening. And so it was good. I just wasn't in a place that I could just sit and have this kind of slow remembering of a life, and it was okay. Somebody recommended that to me. It's called Gilead because the town, the name of the town is Gilead. And he tells stories about everything that has happened to him and people in the town. So that part was fascinating. I couldn't get my head in the game on that one. All right, and then I read probably one of my top 5 books of the year, which is going to shock you all, but it's called Things You Save in a Fire by Katherine Center, and it's a romance. It does have a romance in it, but this is a female firefighter, and it was excellent. She's a really good firefighter in Texas. She's worked her way up. She's pushed through, and everybody respects her, and then something happens. Her mother calls her. They've been estranged for years and needs her to come live with her for about a year because she's starting to lose some vision, and she had a fall, and she just needs to get used to being that way, and she needs her help. And the daughter says, I'm not coming to somewhere in the East Coast. I'm not coming home to live with you. Like, we haven't spoken in... Her mother left her when she was a young child, left her with her father. And she's still angry with her. So I know some of this will ring true for some of you about how some books are written, right? It was so good. And then so she ends up going, and then they invite her to this crochet club, which you love, right? And she's like, I am not going to a crochet club. She runs and she works out, and she's got to carry all the stuff. And so she gets transferred to a fire department that's never had a woman. They don't think they need a woman or should have a woman. I just loved it. Things You Save in a Fire. Go put it on hold or whatever. It's not new. I downloaded it right away. It came out in like 2018. Didn't have holds on it. I just really liked it. I couldn't stop listening. I thought it was really good. There is a romance part of it. Does tell the story of her mother and her father and what happened. And, it's not always what kids think. Things don't always happen the way kids think they do. It was very good. And then the last one I read was Miss Benson's Beetle, and that is a book club book for this fall. And so I had to have it on my list. And that is about a spinster who is a school teacher who has been treated kind of poorly her whole life. She's overweight and not pretty, and the kids tease her mercilessly. And she decides to go on an adventure, and her father had introduced her as a young person to the guide of insects, and she's going to go in the search of this unfound beetle. And it is the story of a relationship that she develops with a traveling companion. It's funny. It's very off the cuff. It's a lot like the books written about the lady in Africa, the #1 detective ladies agency that takes place in Botswana. It had that feel that, traveling, things happening, light-hearted and funny, but a good storyline. If you liked those books, you would like Miss Benson's Beetle. I didn't think I wanted to read it because I thought it was going to be about insects, and it's not. And then I finished reading a graphic novel that I had started months ago, and I just never finished. And this is the book, The Best We Could Do by Tai Bui. And this is a graphic novel. If you're not aware, graphic novels are told in cartoon form. So she literally drew every square of this, and it's all done in those 3 colors, kind of grayscale with some orangey rust. And so there's not a lot of dialogue to read on each page, but you do take the time to kind of look at the pictures to see what's happening. And this is the story of a Vietnamese refugee family from back in the day when, the Vietnam War was going on and the regime was overtaking, and people lost everything. They lost their careers, they lost their families. And it is the life story of this family. She is the daughter, and then how they would get in a boat and travel and try to escape, and then if they got caught, and then they get to, if they come to America, how they're treated, and to no fault of their own, they've been, things in their country have been overthrown. Tai Bui paints the portrait of a single family across 3 generations, as many continents and thousands of panels, without one false stroke of the brush. Comics don't get much better than The Best We Could Do. So if you've never read a graphic novel, there are some really popular ones out there. And if you need titles, let me know. My daughter, Kylie, introduced me to graphic novels, and she's read a bunch, and she has a couple that are her favorites. She had me read one in high school, and I did really like it. It was really popular. And there's another one that she just told me about, but they're not audio. You could never do a book like this on audio. So I did purchase this on Amazon. I'm sure you could get it from your local library, but I learned a lot about reading graphic novels, but also a lot about the Vietnamese experience. And so yeah, I would recommend that as well. And doesn't take long to read. It kind of moves right along. Okay, those are the books. Yeah, I wrote one down here, but I sent it back. I listened to the first 5 pages and I was like, this is not for me. It was, I don't know, it was about a ghost, and the ghost had feelings, and sometimes you just gotta cut your losses and be like, I'm just not in the mood, especially after, sometimes when I come off one that was just a struggle for me to get involved in a different time in my life, I probably would have loved it. I just have to, say no. So now I'm listening to the Viola Davis memoir, the actress, and it's really sad at the beginning. They were so poor. Oh my goodness. So poor that it's an amazing where she has come from. So, and I think I have 7 books that have come up on Libby that they're available. And so I have them on loan. So I need to listen this week. Anyway, I hope you all have a great Labor Day weekend. I hope you get time off. If you prefer to knit during that time, I hope you get to. I am planning my travel knitting. Ross and I are going to Mackinac Island. We heard Kylie and Stevie talking about it, and we got memories. And they have discounted packages on Labor Day weekend because they have a jazz festival, and it's the end of the season for them. So now through September, things will get, kind of shut down in October. So, I mean, people live there year round, but not some of the other places. And so we just decided. He called and we're going over. So I have 9 hours of knitting time in the car. So we'll go on Friday and come back on Monday. So it's kind of a lot of driving for a short time away, but Ross never takes time off. And so if he says, let's take some time, I'm all in. So I cast on a sweater last night. I cast on the ranunculus sweater. I saw a gorgeous one on Ravelry. If you go to that page, There's one that's knit at a tighter gauge in pink and white, and it is darling. Completely different look. So I'm trying to mimic the one that this lady knit. I bought the yarn, I ordered the yarn from Australia because I was like, I want that sweater. I wonder if that lady would just sell me hers. So I cast that on last night. I got the neck done, and now I'm on the short rows on the back. And so I could probably finish that this week if I just knit on it every night, because that ranunculus is totally open, and I'm knitting it on an 8 instead of a 10, so it's going to be much tighter. But anyway, and then I have a couple of sweaters that need to be finished. So there was a part of me that said you should only take things that need finishing in the car, because then you won't have a choice. And then part of me said, no, you should cast on something brand new, because I'm such a huge caster oner. It's my favorite thing to do. But I do think I will probably finish. I have a striped chunky cardigan on the needles. It's got maybe this much done, and I don't know why I never finished it. The only problem with taking that is I have all the balls. Like, it's multiple colors, and you change every 2 rows. So lots of ends to weave in, and I just think it's going to be really cute when it's done. Anyway, so I will decide what I'm going to knit on and get packed, because we have to leave early. So it means I have to go to bed early the next few nights, which is hard for me because I get my second wind, and then I just want to stay up, and I say, oh, it doesn't matter, just stay up. And then I will, there's no way I will get up on Friday morning and be happy. If he could just lift me and carry me out to the car like they did when you were kids, and lay you down in the back seat. And then I could just sleep for 3 more hours. But anyway, I got to get up. So thanks for being here each and every week. Some of you never miss, and that is lovely. Just so nice of you. I don't think I have anything else. I hear Russ. Can you hear my husband's car rumbling? He's been working on the Corvette. He took it for a ride earlier, and it kind of makes the garage rumble a little bit. But until next time, come in for your hug. Big hugs. Some of you are going through some really tough times right now, and I'm sorry about that. Just know that you are loved. Someone cares about you, and hang in there. Keep your bananas. Keep your bananas. No green bananas. You'll never regret ripping out. Keep it colorful. Keep your fork. Buy the gravy. Don't complain with your mouth full, which sometimes I have a tendency to. Love you all. See you in a couple weeks. Bye.